It's me, Sony. Welcome back to another VR video. Today's video takes place in sort of the basics of ProjectTX, but it's not actually ProjectTX. What you're looking at is a new VR body rig. So recently, of course, Bone Lab came out from stress level 0, and as I was working on a random sort of test last week on body scaling and all of that good stuff, I decided, well, it kind of inspired me to finally do the things that I was putting off, which is getting an anatomically correct let me pronounce that correctly, anatomically correct character body going, which also rewrite the entire VR body system, because mine was it was getting old, right? I was annoyed by the lack of shoulder control and all of that good stuff. And this one is the new one. Now, you'll probably notice every now and then there's a tiny bit of stutter, and that's because this is running entirely in fixed update right now. I've just turned the rate up a little bit high, just so that it looks a little bit smooth, but in reality, there's no need to run it at the regular render rate, because fixed update is when my physics will be running, which we're going to see a little bit of right here. Now, what you're looking at right now is a scaled version of me. So, there's actually two sets of rigs. This one here, which is the one that I'm actually playing as, so you can see here the shadows of it, and this is me. This is the actual pure user body, the real person, using my metrics, right? So my actual character metrics, which is my own personal profile based on my actual scale of my human body in reality. That one there, however, is a different profile, which is scaled based on this one to a different character, which of course in this case is just my own personal self. So it's the same values in that one. So that means you can kind of use it as a mirror, right? Which works really well. Not a perfect mirror, it's a right hand, left hand mirror. And then you've got the actual same thing going on here and there in scaled mode, right? So there we go. You can actually see a little bit of an upgrade as well to my system, right? So firstly, let's look at the actual motion of it. I don't know if you can have a look from this end. You might be able to see a little bit better, but let's just get this view first. And you can see I've actually added some hip motion as well compared to what it was before. It was very straight back earlier, and this one looks a lot better now, with a little bit of velocity and acceleration control on the hip. Yep, really nice, right? It feels like it actually moves naturally. You can probably kind of sense the feeling of legs, even though I don't have legs right now in the actual tracked rig, right? So this is all derived from the 2 points, the controllers and the head, and of course the scaling is done relative to my natural body. Now, I haven't done any offsets as well, so here when I touch my controllers together on my end, that's fine on my natural body shape, but you can see that the shorter one can't actually make the scale, and the taller one as well. His arms are not big enough, and of course these characters are scaled like this on purpose. I've tested this with many different shapes, including like sort of wide shoulder muscles and very skinny, thin, and super tall, and then super giant as well. I've just sort of oversized. I've tested it with all of the sizes like I showed in the previous video. However, of course, this one is completely rewritten from scratch. Over the past week, I rewrote the character body system. I'm calling it the true body, because this is the actual real world human being tracked and derived and calculated. And then the second version, which is the scaled body, which is all of these three in fact, are the scale body. And then after that, I've rewritten the Ragdoll entirely as well, which is now using a little bit more of an advanced system than it was in ProjectTX, which is already pretty much super advanced, right? So it's already kind of the forefront on the Ragdoll side, but we'll see a little bit more. So here we go. You can see the shoulders are much better now, right? Where they actually care about where the elbow is, and the arm is just about sort of pushing on the limits of the shoulder there, right? Instead of, as you could see in sort of ProjectTX, when I do this, the shoulder just kind of stays straight, and the arm becomes very folded up, and then things get really awkward, right? So here we go. This is now much better, right? And then of course you can see it's still very fast, right? Which is being able to control the elbow. It's very important. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, very important, right? If I switch to this camera, you can just kind of see how quickly it is to just sort of uppercut, you know, round, and then straight forward as well. Very important that the elbows are quite direct, right? Now they're not perfect yet. I want them to be able to close up all the way down to here, so a little bit of work to be done. In fact, let me, from first person view, so I want to close the elbows up a little bit more. I want them to do this, right? Up to here as a limit. So a little bit of tweaking yet to be done, but so far quite nice. And you can see the rotation of the body as well. Not necessarily terrible. So there we go. You can still see the chest. This is my actual chest, and you can see it sort of stays about right as well, right? Whereas if I turn my body with this hand, and then with the head I can turn my body as well. Right? A little bit of twisting as well, so if I switch to this camera you'll be able to see a little bit of stretching, tilting. Very nice. Really good. A good flexibility on the character body there. However, that's not everything. Of course, just using a VR body is pointless when you're not actually using it for something cool. So, of course, I've already added the ragdoll. Like I said, I rewrote the ragdoll. Boop. There we go. So what you're actually seeing here, the characters are using the scaled ragdolls, the scaled body shapes, and you can see that they track very fast. So these are pure ragdoll. These are absolutely ragdoll. There's it's mostly just running purely on their ragdoll bones. So the actual spine is holding itself in its angular. The elbows are holding themselves in the angular. And you can see here the shape, especially of Mario there, who kind of has a humanoid shape. The shape is kept really well, right? And of course, these are the actual raw tracking points, right? Where the actual scales and the shapes of these, what you're seeing here, these blue shapes and the purple head shape, those are the exact shapes of the colliders that are being used for the ragdoll. So that's the actual collision, right? There we go. That's the actual collision that you're seeing. In fact, let me switch to my camera here. That's the actual collision that you're seeing. You can see that the Tiiny needs reshaping. I'm going to actually redo this character model. It looks really nice, but oh, there we go. Yeah, so if I lift my arms here, you can see it's definitely better than it used to be, right? It's the shoulders are now finally looking like shoulders, as opposed to what they were doing in the previous video and sort of recent videos. Bowser has a little bit of trouble because the whole body structure didn't sort of meet the requirements that I have, and I haven't done any position offsets yet for the bones as well. So his neck is kind of squished into his chest, just because his dimensions, his overall proportions are not very anatomical. Right, so you can see here where his neck is a bit kind of in the wrong place here, and then his head's just kind of popping out. And you can see the collider's really big as well for that, but his head shape I haven't matched. Whereas Mario, it's a little bit closer, and you can see he just kind of fits that humanoid shape a lot better. And you can see the muscle shapes on the colliders need a little bit of work as well, but again, these are the pure colliders that you're actually looking at. And then of course with the body matching. So you can see this blue thing is just the tracking points, right? So this is just the calculated points, whereas this guy is the ragdoll, right? And that means what you're seeing is the exact, is the comparison between the ragdoll tracking and the raw points that it's trying to get to. So very fast, right? You can see the head needs a little bit of speed on the rotation there. It's a little bit laggy. There we go. Other than that, everything else is pretty fast. It's pretty good there. There we go. Absolutely brilliant, right? So there we go. You can kind of hop around. Obviously their feet aren't moving. It doesn't care about the legs yet. But there we go. Really. And then especially when you walk. Right, if I switch the characters off, there we go. Walking looks really right? So there we go. Let's see in a more easy to work with camera. You can see with the hip movement as well, especially running and then stopping, standing back, side. It's all very nice. It's all very nice. I'm very satisfied with what I've done so far. This is the new Ragdoll system. It's absolutely much better than the previous one. I can generate. Ooh, I need to learn how to speak today. I can generate the ragdolls with a single button, and it generates based on the actual character profile. So the actual shapes that you're seeing here, entirely generated from one button, and then I just add the character, set the bones correctly, and press a button to automatically generate the offsets for the rotations. So again, no need to correct and orient your bones or anything like that, because obviously each rig has a different set of bone axes and everything. My character model is done completely differently in a different program to how Mario was done. This is from a different game to that, so these are all different character bodies with different character body axes and all of that good stuff. So there's still a little bit of work to do, of course, which is scaling on the hand poses, right? Let's get these guys visible. That scaling on the hand poses is definitely causing trouble, because you can see here my controllers are touching, right? So that center point should be touching here. The center point should be touching here for Mario as well, and it's not, right? Which is the problem. And that's something that, oh, there we go. Wrong camera, of course. The center point should be touching for all characters. Now I'm going to work on that. It's just going to be scaling from the shoulder point to the center, and then that should solve that problem. And then from the outside here, you still want to make sure that the actual full stretch arms are always at full stretch when you're out on the ends there. No matter how long those arms are relative to the character body. Of course, when the character scales down to match Mario or scales up to match Bowser, those arm lengths need to still keep their positions nicely, right? Which is exactly what's going on here. I should be able to T-pose with each character at the same time, properly, and then correctly move with them. So there we go. I know that's a bit of a short video, a bit of a simple video today, but you know how it is. I kind of wanted to show. I wanted to get this stuff done fully, right? So the ability to actually scale your characters to match an existing character bone structure, so that you don't have all of those problems. You can see the stuttering happening here. That's purely, like I said, it's because it's running in fixed update. It's not going to sync with the correct frame rate. But of course, these characters, no problem, they are smooth, and that's because they are actually interpolated. Like I said, these are ragdolls as opposed to these, which are just raw tracking points and show the shapes of the characters at the same time. The shoulder shapes do need a little bit of work as well. Again, I custom modeled every single shape here manually, making sure that they fit an anatomical model. And yeah, a little bit of work maybe on the sort of squished ones. Maybe I'll have a second set of colliders that are just dependent on the size. I want to round out the belly collider here as well, just to make sure it's not so cornerized, especially when the character gets larger. And then of course I want to do some offsetting and warping on the hands, and then make it scale to the body as well, just to make sure. And then there we go, we've got a new system, and this is already going to make my life so much easier when working with ProjectTX, because these new ragdolls are much more capable of moving around naturally with very minimal additional work, right? So this is actually going to save a lot of performance per ragdoll NPC, right? So again, bear in mind, this is all happening at the same time from one tracking rig, where I'm the tracking rig, and this ragdoll is working from its own profile, this ragdoll works from its own profile, this ragdoll works from its own profile. That means I can animate one regular standard character moving around with standard animations, and then just throw it onto a Mario-sized character and have that as an NPC. with all the same AI systems and everything, and the same animation setup. It'll be amazing. It'll make it so easy to build new characters that are AI characters, right? NPCs, not just the player. Just having a player avatar is all very good and very well and good, but for the most part, unless you're standing in front of the mirror, you won't see the character, right? You just look down. Here I've got a belly. Here I've got a belly, and maybe look at your arms every now and then. You hold them when you're holding a gun. You kind of get a feel for the fact that you have a character body there, and then that's it, right? For the most part, you're not going to see you. But what you really want to see is as many sort of customizable avatars as NPCs. The easier that I make this for me to... there we go. The easier that I make this for me to work with, the more characters I can actually build quickly. And that makes my game much more likely to have a lot more content. Now, speaking of the game, speaking of ProjectTX, very, very soon I'll be putting up a nice demo. The aim is for there to be a tech demo that contains a large amount of content. And yeah, so that you can actually spend some real time testing every little bit, because I think one of the things about ProjectTX is that the Ragdoll system feels very, very different to what you've played before. Even Bolab, it feels very different to that, right? So it's not the same thing. Again, it's much more. It feels completely different. It's not even. I can't really explain what the difference is. It's the way that I've set up the physics feel more damped in certain areas, slightly sort of weaker and stronger in certain areas. Movement can seem snappier on some things, a little bit slower on other things, and it's just the overall tweaking setup feels very much completely different. It's like a completely different idea in its essence, and that coupled with the hybrid locomotion system, I can assure you feels really good when you're moving around the world as well. The control setup that I've gone with, I think you're going to really enjoy trying that out and testing the actual movement system as well. What's really enjoyable about it is that feeling of being able to just move around really quickly as well, and I want to really put that out. So thanks very much for watching this one. I know it's a very short amount of content today, but what's going on behind the scenes here took me a week, and it is really cool. Really cool. It's very exciting for me personally, so that's all that matters, right? Anyways, thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Say goodbye, Bowser. Say goodbye, Mario. And then yeah, me. Bye bye.